here again with Brian for chapter 3 in this story that is unfolding, and today we'll be talking about the authorities. So, who contacted you in an official capacity, and how did that feel?
So my phone call on Monday evening was from a special agent of the state attorney's office, and he identified himself immediately as with the state attorney general's office, the office of Josh Shapiro, and that, of course, is a phone call you don't get every day from a state agent. Also identified himself as also with Homeland Security, and so initially, again, it was a voicemail, so I had no idea what this was in reference to. And quite frankly, I thought initially this was probably, we got hacked somehow. The fact that he said he left our laptop computer was confiscated, that we might have got hacked somehow. But anyhow, just getting that initial phone call from the state attorney's office was quite jolting and unnerving, not knowing what it was about or who's the face behind this conversation. So very intimidating would be the word I would use. Intimidating and very attentive. I was very attentive to this. But as we talked in over the phone then that same night, it became very clear this state agent had no interest. His exact words to me, he says, "I'm not here to blow up the church." He said, "I have zero interest in that." He said, "I have a job to do, and I'm sorry, this is tough stuff." And he said, "Your next 48, 72 hours are going to be really, really difficult." But he coached and helped to prepare a little bit of what would be expected. But the capacity and how I felt through that was, I felt cared for, frankly. And he continued to avail his phone number 24/7 to me. And for the weeks that followed, I think the following 6 or 7 weeks, just due to the ongoing investigation, made his cell phone available to our entire congregation, just in case there would have been additional victims or other parts of the investigation that needed to be disclosed. Basically, 3 things that had to happen is, number 1 is to call Childline, number 2 is to call him, and then to report. So that's just a reality of working with the state attorney's office, and that was a first for me from that high level of state authorities.
So then, kind of on the flip side, who contacted you out of a sense of relationship, and what was that like?
So the hours that followed after this hit, even before it hit the press, again, I was in a state of shock, as was our team, and trying to navigate and thinking of all the questions and how to prepare. But again, this is just I think a testimony of God's presence in the midst of, and God's provision in the midst of so many unknowns. In less than 1 hour, I got 3 contacts from 3 key persons in our community. I have a long relationship within our local community. I would consider myself to be a community pastor. I'm a big believer in networking and having lunch regularly with our police chief. I serve as a volunteer chaplain, and so I have a deep relationship with law enforcement, and also our school superintendent, our local judge, first name basis, and they'll take my call. If I call them, they'll take my call. I mean, that's the type of relationship it is. And likewise, I take their call. So that's been something I've aspired to ever since I've been in ministry, was to have relationships with key players in our community. And this was a moment now where it felt like it was reciprocated and came back to be a real blessing to me. So in less than 1 hour, I had a personal contact in person with our police chief. And our police chief came into my space that day, and with tears, acknowledging what had happened and his grief for me, for the situation, for the church. And touched me deeply, able to pray together and to be together, and I just felt really, really cared for. He not more than left, and my phone rang, and it was our local judge. Mm. And I've known our local judge for probably 25 years. He used to be a police officer and our local detective, so I knew him in law enforcement capacity. And the irony of ironies is he was the one who did the arraignment just hours before. Mm. And he told me, he said, Brian, I wanted to call you, but of course I could not because of legalities and the complexities as related to his job. But now that the formal arraignment had happened, and he called me, he said, I'm calling you today. You walk with me through some tough stuff. He said, now I'm calling you to walk with you. And he said, his first words were, he says, you will get through this, Brian. He said, your church will get through this. He said, yes, the next 48, 72 hours, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really hard. But he said, in time, this will get buried in the press. It doesn't make the pain go away. Your congregation's still got a lot to work through and to walk through. But he said, you will get through this. Mm-hmm. And to get that phone call from him was just a godsend. It was a gift. And I was so glad, again, that relationship that I had on the front side. I mean, I couldn't have just made this come out of thin air. You know, this was cultivated over years, and now to be able to be at a place where this could be now a reciprocal and to be a blessing through relationship. He not more than hung up the phone and got a contact from our school superintendent. And I know our school superintendent well, first name basis, and again, I have a cell phone number, and likewise he has mine. And he called me and just giving again words of blessing and encouragement. He himself had gone through a really, really hard with COVID and with other challenges in the school the year before. I know he had gone through incredible difficulty. And along the way, I tried to encourage him, shoot him an email, or we'd see each other once a month for lunch, and just to have that relationship and to be able to encourage him. Now it was coming back to bless me. And I'll never forget, this will carry to my grave. But he went on to say, Brian, you'll get through this, and just keep your chin up and keep pressing on. But he closed with this comment. He says, Brian, this is my word to you. When going through hell, keep moving. I thought, wow, that'll preach. That was a good word. And I needed to hear that because when it feels like the wheels are flying off, or it feels like the world is going to hell in a handbasket, so to speak, that where is the hope here? But for him to say, Brian, keep moving, keep focused, keep moving forward, and God will get you through this. And so those were three phone calls from three very profound leaders in our local community within 1 hour of each other. And I just believe it was just God orchestrating that, just boom, 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 just for the affirmation and the encouragement that I needed at that hour. But again, from relationships that I already was able to cultivate over the years that now turned to be a real blessing to me.
Mm-hmm. And in all those conversations with the officials and also those you had relationship with, what was their posture like, and what are some of the stereotypes that they broke in those conversations?
Yeah, well, from the state attorney's office, of course, there was a fear and shakenness in my own part to take that phone call, and even thinking about, are there ways that I could make things difficult for the church, by self-incrimination of some sort of, even unbeknownst, just because of lack of preparation. But Abby, I will say that any bubbles or fears that persons have, yes, there's some horror stories out there of persons in authority. My experience through all of this has been, just as illustrated from our own local judge to our local police chief, that was also demonstrated at the state attorney's office as well. They were just very kind, very honoring, gentle, And even the special agents assigned this case, he told me, you call me 24/7. Anytime, you call me. Any question, you call me. He said, I will coach you and we'll walk through this together. I assured him of, that we want to be an open book here. Anything that he needs, any questions he has, we're here. We're not trying to hide or not disclose anything that they need. So, but the posture there was just amazing, and it just popped any bubbles, if you will, or fears that you're thinking of, that they're out to get you, and they're especially given the charges, which were significant. And likewise, in the subsequent days, I needed to make a couple calls to Childline and children and youth. And because of discoveries that were made that I became aware of, and needed to make those calls as well. And again, children and youth, they were just amazing. I mean, just simply amazing. Very kind, gentle, and very understanding. Now, of course, I identified myself as a pastor, when you call, but even so, again, given the charges, you would think, you would be treated rudely, or how could you, and that kind of, how could this happen under your watch, all that kind of, and it was not that at all. Just very kind, very gentle, and quite frankly, a real gift at a really moment of crisis, and lots of unknowns, that they were just incredibly kind, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, definitely. And each of those relationships are even crucial as you continue in this journey. Exactly. It's not just one conversation, but a continued relationship over the months and days ahead. And yeah, so thank you for sharing, and we will see you back here in chapter 4.